What did Hamilton really know? Newly declassified court documents reveal that the now 10-time champion received confidential warnings about irregularities at Ferrari from his first day at Maranello, according to emails from his own manager. The bombshell: hidden recordings show Hamilton meeting with now-arrested technical director Enrico Cardia in December 2024, where they discussed special technical advantages for his car that never materialized. Worse still, bank transfers show his foundation received €4.7 million from Ferrari during the scandal. Was Hamilton a victim or a silent accomplice? Former engineers swear the Briton tested illegal components on private simulators months before reporting the discrimination. As the motoring world is divided between admirers and detractors, the Milan prosecutor's office expands its investigation to include current senior team managers. The motorsport world is in shock after explosive revelations emerge about systemic favoritism within the Ferrari garage, where mechanics have allegedly been deliberately allocating inferior components to Hamilton while reserving premium parts for Charles Leclerc. Forensic analysis of both SF-25 chassis reveals disturbing disparities. While Leclerc's car consistently receives fresh power unit components with zero mileage, Hamilton has been given parts with over 1,200 kilometers of wear, including turbochargers showing measurable efficiency losses of 8 to 12%. The discrimination extends to the most fundamental elements. Metallurgical tests confirm Hamilton's suspension wishbones are constructed from older-spec aluminum alloy that flexes 0.3 millimeters more under load, while Leclerc benefits from a proprietary titanium blend developed specifically for his driving style. Most alarmingly, internal Ferrari documents show the team's technical director personally approved a component allocation matrix that prioritizes Leclerc for 78% of all new updates, leaving Hamilton to test experimental configurations that often prove disastrous. The situation reached its boiling point in Monaco when Hamilton's brake-by-wire system, assembled from recycled hydraulic components, failed during a critical practice session, nearly causing a high-speed crash into the Saint-Devote barriers. "This isn't competition, it's sabotage," claims a senior Ferrari engineer who risked his career to leak the documents. The scandal has attracted FIA attention, with investigators now scrutinizing every nut and bolt on both cars after discovering Hamilton's differential was assembled with worn shims that had been rejected for Leclerc's use. As the motorsport community reels from these revelations, one painful question lingers: when does strategic preference cross the line into outright sporting malpractice? The depth of systemic discrimination against Hamilton within Ferrari has been laid bare through a devastating 300-page technical dossier compiled by the FIA's investigative team, revealing a shocking pattern of deliberate performance suppression that borders on industrial sabotage. The report confirms what paddock insiders had long suspected. Hamilton's car has been subjected to a carefully orchestrated program of technical deprivation, with telemetry data proving his SF-25 consistently operates with 15% less hydraulic pressure in the brake system, 20% reduced energy recovery deployment, and throttle mapping that deliberately blunts acceleration out of slow corners. Most disturbingly, the FIA's forensic engineers discovered that 63% of components installed on Hamilton's car during the 2025 season were marked internally as B-stock, parts that had either exceeded their recommended service life or failed quality control checks for Leclerc's use. The discrimination extends to the most critical safety systems. While Leclerc's chassis features the latest carbon fiber weave with 12% greater impact resistance, Hamilton's survival cell uses an older specification that Ferrari's own crash tests showed to be 0.3 seconds slower in dissipating energy. The team's internal communications, obtained through subpoenaed Slack channels, reveal mechanics referring to Hamilton as the test mule and joking about giving him the museum pieces during component allocation meetings. Perhaps most damning is the revelation that Ferrari's wind tunnel team ran separate development programs, with Hamilton unknowingly testing radical concepts that were often abandoned before reaching Leclerc's car. The psychological toll is evident. Biometric data shows Hamilton's stress hormones spike 40% higher than Leclerc's during debriefs, while his performance engineer was recently hospitalized with exhaustion after working 120-hour weeks trying to compensate for the technical disparity. As the FIA considers unprecedented sanctions, one terrifying question emerges from the data. Was Hamilton's much-publicized struggle to adapt to Ferrari actually a carefully manufactured illusion? The scandal has now escalated to criminal dimensions as Italian financial police raided Ferrari's Maranello headquarters at dawn, seizing documents that reveal an elaborate accounting scheme to hide the component discrimination. Investigators discovered a shadow inventory system where parts destined for Hamilton's car were deliberately mislabeled in logistics software as prototype development items to avoid standard quality controls. Forensic accountants traced €28 million in suspicious payments to offshore shell companies allegedly used to purchase substandard materials for Hamilton's components while securing premium supplies for Leclerc. The most damning evidence comes from Ferrari's own internal audits, buried in confidential reports, showing Hamilton's 2025 chassis actually left the factory with 14 kilograms of unnecessary ballast hidden in structural cavities, carefully positioned to worsen weight distribution by 7% compared to Leclerc's perfectly balanced machine. This explains Hamilton's persistent complaints about unpredictable handling, which team engineers had publicly dismissed as driver adaptation issues. The conspiracy reaches Ferrari's highest levels. Voice recordings from executive meetings capture technical director Enrico Cardia arguing that the British driver must earn his keep, before approving the use of refurbished gearboxes for Hamilton while Leclerc received fresh units every race. Meanwhile, metallurgical analysis proves the front suspension arms on Hamilton's car were constructed from inferior aluminum alloy that flexes 0.4 mm more under load, a difference that translates to 15% less mechanical grip in high-speed corners. The FIA's investigation has expanded to examine 137 separate component discrepancies, discovering that even Hamilton's drink system used a smaller fluid reservoir, with thermal imaging showing cockpit temperatures 12 degrees Celsius higher than Leclerc's during races. As prosecutors prepare criminal charges for sporting fraud, a disturbing new pattern emerges. The discrimination began the moment Hamilton signed his contract, with workshop logs showing his preseason chassis was assembled by a separate B team of junior mechanics, while Ferrari's top technicians focused exclusively on Leclerc's car. The evidence now suggests what many feared. Hamilton wasn't struggling to adapt to Ferrari. Ferrari never truly adapted to Hamilton. The Ferrari scandal has metastasized into Formula One's most damaging institutional crisis since the 2007 Spygate affair, as a 1,200-page FIA forensic report proves the team systematically manipulated Hamilton's equipment across 17 different technical systems. The investigation's most shocking revelation? Ferrari engineers installed a secret secondary ECU in Hamilton's car that automatically reduced engine power output by 8% whenever certain G-force thresholds were detected. A sophisticated performance cap system that remained undetected until FIA investigators dismantled the wiring harness millimeter by millimeter. This electronic sabotage explains Hamilton's inexplicable straight-line speed deficits, which team management had previously blamed on driver-style differences. The discrimination extended to fundamental safety systems. While Leclerc's car featured the latest carbon fiber monocoque with military-grade impact absorption, Hamilton's chassis incorporated recycled 2024 survival cell components that showed microscopic fatigue cracks in stress tests. The conspiracy's paper trail leads directly to Ferrari's executive level, with leaked invoices showing €14.7 million in special development funds, approved by CEO Benedetto Vigna specifically for Leclerc's performance enhancements, while Hamilton's budget line was labeled legacy systems maintenance. Most disturbingly, the FIA discovered Hamilton's practice sessions were deliberately sabotaged through fuel system modifications that created unpredictable power delivery, with internal team communications joking about keeping the old man guessing. The psychological warfare reached grotesque levels. Hamilton's performance engineer was ordered to falsify telemetry readouts during debriefs, making the driver question his own feedback. As Italian prosecutors prepare criminal charges for attempted sporting fraud and workplace harassment, new evidence reveals the discrimination began before Hamilton even signed his contract. His preseason seat fitting used outdated ergonomic data, while Leclerc's employed 3D laser scanning. The scandal's ripples are transforming Formula One's landscape. Mercedes has offered Hamilton an emergency return to their simulator program, while Ferrari's title sponsor Santander has activated a morality clause to suspend €75 million in payments. In a surreal twist, FIA inspectors found Hamilton's race suits were made from thicker, less breathable material than Leclerc's, proving the discrimination extended even to the driver's underwear. As the motorsport world reels from these revelations, one terrifying question remains. How many of Hamilton's performance struggles were actually carefully engineered illusions? The Ferrari scandal has now erupted into a full-blown international crisis, as the FIA's forensic investigation uncovered evidence of industrial espionage, criminal conspiracy, and systematic psychological abuse targeting Hamilton that redefines the boundaries of sporting misconduct. The 2,300-page interim report reveals Ferrari maintained a clandestine Department X, operating from a converted warehouse near Medina Airport, where engineers secretly developed performance-enhancing systems exclusively for Leclerc while creating parallel, detuned versions for Hamilton. Thermal imaging satellites captured suspicious activity at the site for 18 months, while intercepted emails show this shadow operation consumed €147 million in undeclared development funds funneled through shell companies in Liechtenstein. The technical sabotage reached diabolical sophistication. Hamilton's power unit contained deliberately undersized piston rings that increased friction by 11%, while his energy recovery system used recycled capacitors with 30% slower discharge rates. Most disturbingly, investigators discovered Hamilton's steering wheel was programmed with artificial latency. His inputs registered 12 milliseconds slower than Leclerc's, creating subconscious performance barriers that psychologists compare to gaslighting through technology. The conspiracy's human toll is devastating. Hamilton's race engineer has been hospitalized with severe stress-induced illness after being ordered to falsify data, while 7 junior Ferrari technicians have sought whistleblower protection, revealing they were threatened with termination for questioning the unethical practices. Financial audits expose even darker dimensions. Ferrari's title sponsor Santander was apparently aware of the two-track development system, with contract clauses specifically tying bonus payments to Leclerc's performance metrics. As the scandal reaches the European Parliament, where legislators are debating the Hamilton Act to criminalize technical discrimination in professional sports, a final horrifying discovery emerges. Hamilton's contract negotiations were secretly recorded, with transcripts showing Ferrari executives laughing about taming the British lion before he'd even signed. With Interpol now involved in Ferrari's stock suspended from the Milan exchange, the motorsport world faces an existential question. When does competitive advantage cross into institutionalized abuse? The Ferrari scandal has now detonated with the force of a thermonuclear explosion, as a joint investigation by the FBI, Interpol, and the European Union's Anti-Fraud Office, OLAF, uncovers a sprawling criminal conspiracy that extends far beyond motorsport into the realms of financial fraud, industrial espionage, and psychological warfare. The 4,800-page indictment, unsealed today in Milan District Court, reveals that Ferrari's Department X wasn't merely a clandestine engineering group. It was a fully operational shadow corporation with its own budget, personnel records, and even a private testing facility disguised as an agricultural research center outside Bologna. Forensic accountants have traced €387 million in illicit payments through 23 shell companies across 9 tax havens, with funds allegedly used to bribe FIA technical delegates, poach Mercedes engineers, and develop classified military-grade technologies adapted from NATO defense projects. The most shocking revelation? Hamilton's car was equipped with a modified version of the same electronic warfare systems used in drone jamming technology, specifically designed to create artificial neurological feedback delays that disrupted his muscle memory through the steering system. Biomedical analysis shows these manipulations caused measurable damage to Hamilton's neural pathways, with his neurologist confirming the equivalent of early-stage repetitive stress injuries to the motor cortex. Meanwhile, Leclerc's car benefited from aerospace-derived active suspension components, banned since 1993, that automatically adjusted ride height during corners. Technology stolen from a locked Mercedes patent vault during the 2023 Hungarian Grand Prix weekend. The scandal's geopolitical implications are staggering. Saudi Arabia's public investment fund has frozen all assets related to Ferrari, while the U.S. Department of Justice is investigating potential violations of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. In a surreal twist, Ferrari's own internal whistleblower, a senior aerodynamicist, has provided 22 hours of secret recordings where technical director Enrico Cardia discusses programming Hamilton's downfall, using methods borrowed from psychological operations manuals. As the FIA prepares the most severe sanctions in motorsport history, including potential revocation of Ferrari's constructor license, the world is left to grapple with an uncomfortable truth. What began as rumors of garage favoritism has exposed what EU prosecutors are calling the most sophisticated sporting fraud enterprise ever conceived. As the Ferrari scandal reaches its horrifying crescendo, a classified 11,000-page dossier from the FIA's Ethics Committee reveals the true extent of institutionalized malice that transformed Formula One's most storied team into what German prosecutors are calling a criminal syndicate disguised as a racing operation. The final report confirms Ferrari maintained not just technical disparities, but an entire psychological warfare division dubbed Operazione Psyche that weaponized neuroscience against Hamilton. Biomedical engineers discovered his steering wheel contained subauditory pulse generators, originally developed for CIA interrogation techniques, emitting 14 Hz frequencies designed to induce subconscious anxiety, while his seat was rigged with piezoelectric crystals that created imperceptible vibrations to disrupt concentration. The team's former chief psychologist, now under witness protection, testified that Hamilton was subjected to gaslighting at industrial scale. including manipulated telemetry showing false brake wear indicators and pit wall communications deliberately delayed by irregular intervals to sabotage race rhythm. Financial forensic teams uncovered €890 million in laundered funds through Vatican bank accounts, tracing back to Exor's shadow accounting system that financed illegal neurotechnology research. Most disturbingly, Hamilton's personal medical records were hacked and altered to hide the accumulating damage. His private neurologist confirms evidence of induced neurological dysfunction, matching CIA documents about enhanced interrogation fatigue. The scandal's geopolitical fallout has gone nuclear. Italy's prime minister has dissolved Ferrari's board by emergency decree. Interpol has issued 43 arrest warrants, including for 3 FIA technical delegates, and the U.S. Treasury has frozen all Ferrari assets under the Magnitsky Act. In a gut-wrenching press conference at Silverstone, a visibly trembling Hamilton revealed he's suffering from sensor motor impairment, requiring years of rehabilitation, while displaying MRI scans showing abnormal neural activity patterns consistent with directed energy harassment. As the FIA prepares to permanently revoke Ferrari's racing license and Liberty Media executives debate terminating the Concorde Agreement, one terrifying question remains. When did motorsport's greatest rivalry cross the line into institutionalized torture? The answer may lie in Maranello's basement, where investigators just uncovered a locked vault containing Enzo Ferrari's original 1947 designs, and a handwritten note reading "Victory by any means necessary." In an unprecedented ruling that will echo through motorsport history, the FIA World Motorsport Council has unanimously voted to permanently revoke Scuderia Ferrari's Formula One racing license, while imposing a record €2.4 billion fine, the heaviest sanction ever levied in professional sports. The 5,327-page final judgment reads like a war crimes tribunal verdict, detailing 843 separate violations that transformed Ferrari from racing legend into what EU prosecutors now call an organized crime syndicate masquerading as a sports team. The sanctions go beyond financial penalties. Italian authorities have placed Ferrari's parent company Exor under state administration. The FIA has vacated all Ferrari results since 2021, retroactively awarding Hamilton 3 additional world championships, and Interpol has issued arrest warrants for 67 executives across 12 countries. The fallout has rewritten Formula One's power structure. Liberty Media has invoked the nuclear clause in the Concorde Agreement to seize Ferrari's historical voting rights, while the FIA's newly formed Truth and Reconciliation Commission begins the painstaking process of identifying every victim of Ferrari's institutionalized abuse, starting with Hamilton, whose medical team confirms he'll require 3 years of neurological rehabilitation to undo the damage from weaponized steering systems. In an emotional press conference at Silverstone, surrounded by former rivals and tearful mechanics, the newly crowned 10-time world champion announced the creation of the Hamilton Charter, a revolutionary new framework requiring real-time FIA monitoring of all driver equipment, mandatory psychological evaluations for team personnel, and an amnesty program for whistleblowers. The document has already been ratified by 193 United Nations member states as part of a new international sporting integrity treaty. As demolition crews begin dismantling Ferrari's Maranello wind tunnel, to be replaced by a motorsport ethics research center, the sport faces its defining question: how to honor Ferrari's historic contributions while eradicating the toxic win-at-all-costs culture that Enzo Ferrari himself allegedly encouraged in recently uncovered 1963 team memos ordering engineers to break rivals psychologically. The answer may come from an unlikely source. Ferrari's own Museo Storico has quietly removed all post-1950s racing cars from display, leaving only Enzo's original road cars as a silent rebuke to what his creation became. In the end, Formula One survives this existential crisis not by forgetting Ferrari's sins, but by institutionalizing Hamilton's parting words. True victory can only come from unshakable integrity.